We're up to Kuf Tes Zayin Omid Beis, and we got up to Rabbi Yehuda Omer, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines down from the top. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Lo Lamein Nemenes Shalohemina Chachamim Leisha Shomeres Meis Baili Elabopen Shiba Bilufanenu Bocha Ugadel Kruim Shemitosh Sicha Lefituma Arezu Hochacha Gmur Shemes. We only believe and rely on the testimony of a woman regarding Meis Bali, her husband died, only if she has what's called the status of Mesiach Lefitumo. She was crying, she was ripping her clothes, and then she told the story about how her husband died. Tanya, Amru Lo, the Chacham said to Rabbi Yehuda, Lidvarecha, according to you that only a woman who's crying, etc., is believed. It comes out that Bikachas, who knows exactly how to cry and put up a whole show about how grieving she is, Tinas, but Shota, she doesn't know exactly how to force herself to cry and make a whole demonstration, is Lo Tinase. She would not be able to get married. So why should the chelek of the shota be worse off, the gara, than the chelek of a pikachas? And therefore the Chachamim concluded, based on this logic, this argument, that even if she's not crying and she's not ripping her clothes, she can get married. And we're going to rely on her testimony. Ahidi Asyo Lebeidina de Rabbi Yehuda. There was a story in which a woman came to the Beis Din of Rabbi Yehuda to testify that Meis Paila and get a heter, a license to get married. Amri Lo, the Chachamim said to this woman, Sifti Balech, cry and eulogize your husband, Kiri Manech, and rip your clothing, Visisri Mazniach, and just rip your hair wild, take your hair out of in a wild way that shows that you're truly misabelis, that you look like you're really grieving over the loss of your husband. And then Rabbi Yehuda will allow you to get remarried. So they pumped her up and they prepared her before she would show up in front of Rabbi Yehuda. She should behave in that way, and then Rabbi Yehuda will accept her. The Gemara asks, Alfu Ashikra? Are we teaching her and preparing her for falsification? No, we cannot be mater her without Bechir, without her availus. So now we're going to teach her and guide her. Then she's not a Mesech Lefituma. There's no proof at all from her crying. So you're going to be mater based on Sheket. Gemara says, Inu Kirabonan Sfiru, the Chachamim that taught her and guided her how to act in the presence of Rabbi Yehuda, they were of the view in our Mishnah, like the Chachamim in our Mishnah, that even if she's not crying, she still believed. And that which they gave her a recommendation and taught her how to do this, Amri ta'abed hachi, it's worth your while to do it this way, so that Rabbi Yehuda would be matir. Even though, again, according to his shita, she wouldn't be believed. She's not a Mesicha Lefituma. But nevertheless, the Chachamim wanted to get out of Rabbi Yehuda a psak that would reflect what they held was the true view, the true halach, because she's mutter even without the fear. Umikano chiach hameiri shemuto ligrom lechacham v'yiter v'yatir davar shel daito osur im agorim lekach savur shezeu davar mutter. That's what it says. All right, we're now up to the Mishnah on Daf Kuf Tes Zayin Amud Beis. Beisil Omrim. This is a continuation of the previous Mishnah. regarding the credibility of a woman to testify Mace Bailey. Lo shamanu ella iba min haktsir. She says that my husband died during the harvest. Sha'az hachama kodachas b'rosh kol adam. That's a dangerous period of time when the sun reaches its zenith during the summer months. And it's intensely hot. And Mitsuyim Sham Nachashim. And V'osa Medina Ukemaisa Shahoya. And she testifies that he died in that country. And like the story that happened. Namely, that the Chachamim established her credibility because of a Maisa Shahaya. A woman came and testified that her husband died. They couldn't find any witnesses to substantiate her claim. And at the end, they found his body. So the Chachamim saw fit that they should be Mesaken and Lahamin, that we trust a woman, because if we don't make that takana, then she might remain an aguna. There are no aid. And Beis Hillel say that the Rabbanan did not establish that we should believe her, except if it's similar to the story that happened. Shemeis habal b'mokum karov, and her isha mefacheres l'shakter. In other words, it's like a miltzah davidi l'kluya. They're going to be able to check out whether she's telling the truth or not. And if she's lying and falsifying the truth, then yizbar sheshikra. But in Medina Sayyam, which is very far away from Bezdin, there she's not believed, because she doesn't even imagine and suspect that this testimony of hers would come to the attention of Bezdin and they'll clarify her falsification of the truth. Amar lehem Beit Shammai, achas haba min hakotzir, v'achas haba min hazeisim, v'achas haba min habotzir. Botzir is referring to Anovim. V'achas haba min Medina leMedina. In all these cases, the Rabbanan believe the Isha who testifies that her husband dies. Shelo dibru chacham b'kotzir ela b'hove. When the chacham mentioned kotzir, that she believed during the kotzir, they were describing a common situation where a person would die because of the hot sun. Chazu Beis Hillel lahoros ki Beit Shammai, and Beis Hillel eventually rescinded their original view, and they accepted the view of Beit Shammai. And we expand her nemanis. It's not limited to Kotzir and also Medina, Masechet. Forget about all that. We're going to accept Beit Shammai. Bamin HaKotzir, Bamin HaZeisim, Bamin HaBotzir, Bamin Medina LeMedina. And we learned the price of Amrulahem Beit Shammai Beis Hillel L'Divreichem. If you're correct that a woman is not believed, unless it's Kain Maisa Shahoy, it's got to be similar to that episode. Ainly, I don't know that a woman is believed. Ella B'Ktsir Chitim. Maybe go a step further. And if the Maisa Shahoy was that he died during Ktsir Chitim, then B'Ktsir Sior Minayin. Why should be believed if they were harvesting the barley and not the wheat? And even if you'll say that in all Katzir, a woman is believed, that we're not going to differentiate between Ktsir Chitim and Ktsir Sorim, ainly, I don't know that she's believed Ela B'Kotzer. Only because it was a Maisa Ktsira. She was cutting down the wheat. Botzer, which means she was cutting down the grapes. O Mosek, the olives. O Goder, Tmorim. O Oded, Malaket Te'enim, Minayin. How do you know in even these cases she'd be believed? because you admit that a woman is believed even if it's not b'shas hakotzir. Ela ma'isa shahaya b'kotzir v'hu adin l'kula. The actual story that happened, the tragedy, that was when it was the hot summer months of harvest. But even if it wouldn't be the months of harvest, the same din would apply. There's no reason to believe her more in Katzir than in any other situation. Achenami, Maise Shahaya Ba'osa Medina, Vehu Adin Lekulu. We could believe her not only in that Medina where the Maisa took place, but everywhere. Lekulu. Give me 1 second, please. Yeah, can I call you back? I'm in the middle of the shir. Okay, so then the Chol Makom who adin lekulu, she's believed to testify that her husband died even from a different Medina. And Beis Hillel, they hold that we should differentiate between Otza Medina, Kevin the Shchichi Inshi Mirsasa, right? She's afraid to be caught on a lie in that Medina. But Medina la Medina, Acheres Kevin de lo Shchicha Inshi is lo mirasasa. She's not afraid, and therefore Beis Hillel are afraid that maybe she's lying. And Beit Shammai hold that Hachanami Shchichi Shayirasa, that she has to be afraid if she's telling the falsifying the truth, that maybe they'll find out about it when the Shayara comes, caravans and the transportations and so forth from far off countries. Now the Gemara clarifies, my Maisa Shahaya, what was the story that Chachamim came to believe in Isha? The Omer Rabbi Yehuda, Omer Shmuel. At that time, Shilfi, Ktsir, Chitim, Hayu, it was the end of the time period of the harvest of the wheat. The Holchu Asara B'nei Adam Liktzar Chitim, Unishachol Nachash Li'echem Umeis. Nebuch, one of the 10 people who were there cutting down the harvest, he died from a Nechishas Nachash, Basa Ishto, Bodil Bezdin. She came to testify in front of the courts that her husband died, but Sholchu, and they sent messages, because again, it was before the Takana that we believe a woman, and those messengers were out there on a scouting trip to find out whether she's telling the truth. They found that it's true, he died. Yosef Shah, Amru Isha Shamar Baili, Meis Baili Tinase, Meis Baili Tisyam. So the Gemara says, Nema Rabbi Chananya ben Akavia, Rabbanan, the Plukta de Beit Shammai Beis Hillel Kamifni. We have a similar machlokas between Rabbi Chananya and the Rabbanan to that of Beit Shammai Beis Hillel. The Sanya, we learned to the Brisa, Lo Yisa Odom Mechatos, the Efer Chatos. This is the Efer Paraduma, this week's parsha. Umayim Shemu Urabam, that's Efer Apara. So you mix the Efer Apara into Mayim. That gives you Mechatos. And a person is not allowed to carry Mechatos and Efer Chatos, V'yavirem B'yardein Ubesfina, to cross the Jordan in a boat, because maybe somebody will die in the boat, and that will cause tumah to the me'achatos. Me'achatos is very valuable. We can't afford to let it become tumah. Lo yamod b'tzad zeh, he shouldn't stand on one side of the riverbanks, the Yizrok, and he throws mechatos etzad acher on the other side of the river. V'lo yashitem al pnei hamayim. He should not put them in a utensil, the mechatos, that'll float on the water. Because all of these are similar to spina. V'lo yarkivem lo al gabi behema, v'lo al gabi chaveru. Not on top of behema that's traveling through the water. That's also similar to spina. And a man rides the animal through the water like he rides a boat through the water. And the behema walks on karka, and the spina sometimes will go up on the ground, on the dry ground, and not on top of his friend who goes into the water. Ellen keno yiraglov, no goes bekarka, unless the rochev is touching the ground. Then it's not similar to spina, it's very shallow water. And since the elyon is shut b'mayim el holech b'mayim, so if the raglov of the elyon, he's riding on top of his friend, are entering into the water, so you might think that that's like a sfina, but no, we're going to say it's not shut b'mayim, but rather it's holech b'mayim. And all this is because it's similar to the Masechet Shahaya, when they were transporting mechatos in a boat, the Yarden, and the mechatos contracted to them. And therefore they made a takana that we're not allowed to be molech mechatos in any way that's similar to the sfina. Avo ma'virim al gesher. A bridge is not considered like a boat. Kevan sh'adam anosim b'mahalech b'raglav al gesher. He's not going into the water. His feet are on top of the gesher, on top of the bridge. And the whole Isur was not to put it into the water. Echad yardein v'echad shar naharos. So the Isur applies not just to the Yarden, but to all rivers. Rabbi Chananya ben Akavi Omer lo osa lo omru. When did they say you're not allowed to carry mechatos elo Yarden ubespino k'maisa shahaya? Only in the Yarden, not any other river, and only in a boat. And all this reflects the maisa shahaya. In fact, the Gemara leimar rabbanon. Shall we say the following, matching that Rabbanon, who hold that the Gzeira regarding Mechatos expands from the Yarden to all the Naharos, it encompasses all the Naharos, they hold like Beit Shammai, that basically is the takana that we believe in Isha, even when she comes from one Medina to the other. And even though this is not like the Masechet Shahaya, Rav Chananya ben Akavya, the Omer K'beis Hillel, he holds that they limit and restrict the scope of this Gzeira with regard to Mechatos only to the Yarden, no other river. The Omer K'beis Hillel, that the takana to believe in Isha is only in that Medina. K'maisa Shahaya. Amrulach Rabbanon, Anan de Amrinon, Af K'beis Hillel. We who accept the Gzeira in the broadest scope to apply to all Naharos, we can be reconciled with Beis Hillel, who says that Lo Tiknu El K'maisa Shahaya. Ad kan lo kamri Beis Hillel hasam, that the takana of believing the woman when she says my husband died is limited in scope. It's got to be K'maisa Shahaya. Ela mishum demir sasasa. But the reason why a woman is believed and she has credibility is because she's afraid that if she would fabricate the truth, her fabrication would become exposed, and she'll be mafsid, tetzimizel mizeh. Therefore, according to Beis Hillel, they made a gzera dafka b'makom korov mirsasa. She's only afraid here locally that she'll get caught in a lie. B'makom rachok, where it's not shviach, it's not anticipated that Beis Din will find out one way or the other whether she lied. Lo miras, so she's not afraid, and therefore they were not misakin that she should be believed. But hacha mechatos mali yarden mali shar naharos. There's no logical difference, not a hair's breadth difference between the yarden and other naharos. We have to be choshesh that she's metame the taros, the mechatos. Hanani ben Akavya, he too could free himself. Anod the Amri Af Libeit Shammai. Even though Rab Hananya says that the Gzera was not on all rivers, but only on Yarden, like the Masechet, you could still accept Beit Shammai, who were not limited to the Masechet, and yet they expanded Harbut Nemonos through this takana to many different scenarios. When did the Beit Shammai say that we're willing to accept the testimony of a woman whose husband died, even if it's not similar to the Ma'aseh Shahaya Ela Mishum? That's only because the Daiko Mitzvah. She'll make a full-fledged investigation to find out if her husband died or didn't. Only when she has the final verdict, that after all the investigation, they came to the conclusion that her husband is dead, then she gets married. Mali makom kara, mali makom racha. It makes no difference. She'll always have to be afraid and suspect that maybe her husband will come back alive. And that'll be taken to mizeh, and all the knossos. But hacha, in the case of mechat, what's the reason for the takana? And therefore they weren't masakin it except kedugmas hamaisa. And dafka b'yardin u'b'sfina davi maisa gozer abonon b'shanaras lo avi maisa lo gozer abonon. So the Gemara now asks, my maisa shahaya. What was the story with the mechatos and the sfina? Yomer Rav Yudom Rav maisa be'odom shahaya ma'avir mechatos v'yefrachat b'yardin u'b'sfina. The nimtzeis kezayis min ames tochuv b'karkos shel sfina. And the kli that had the mechatos v'yefrachatos was mahil. It went over this kezayis min ames, and therefore they became tomid. Is biot b'shah amru. Uyisa ono mechatos v'yefrachatos v'avirem b'yarden u'b'sfina. They made this gzera, and they said that since the takola happened once, we're going to make sure to avoid it any recurrence. Beit Shammai Omer in the Mishnah, a woman who's believed to say Meis Baila is Tinase, that's number one, she get remarried. And Titol Ksubasa, number two, she is now an almana who has rights to collect her Ksub. Beis Hillel Omrim, Tinase. Right, Beis Hillel admitted that Beit Shammai are right. We can certainly trust her. But she cannot be trusted for Netilas Ksuv min hayarsh, to bring Mammon out of their possession. The low Titol Ksubasa. Amru lehem Beit Shammai. Beit Shammai turned to Beis Hillel and say, how's it possible? He tied them Erva Chamura, the low Natir Mammon Akal. if you're modeh that we could be matir her to get remarried based on her own testimony, it means we're somech on her to be matir iser erev aveshes ish, then how much more so should we rely on her testimony for the netilas ksuba, which is not a matter of life and death, it's just a financial arrangement. Why should we believe her? Amrulem Beis Hillel, Beis Hillel respond to Beit Shammai's argument. Matzinu, I find a precedent for this, that even though we believe as far as Erva Chamur is concerned, but we don't believe as far as Mammon is concerned. Be'af al pisha Mammon yoser kal mi'erva. And here we turn to Daf Kuf Yud Zayin. She'ena achim nichnosim lenachla al pia. The brothers cannot inherit the estate of the so-called late brother based on her word, her testimony, because in Dini Mamas we need two Eidim. And even though we were Mekil, as far as Nesuin is concerned, and we're going to rely on her testimony to allow her license to get remarried on an Iser Erva Chamura, we're not going to apply the Kal V'chomer to believe her in Mammon Akal. Why? Tafkel in Nesuin Ikilu Mishum Aguna. In order to avoid an Aguna situation, they would Mekil in the Nesuin, meaning in the marriage that she will, in Eretz Hashem, take part in now. And they were Mekil Mishumi Guna. There was a pressing need for a kula over here. And they were rely on her testimony, etc. But we're not going to learn from that Kal V'chomer to the Ksuba, because only when there's that pressing need of Mishum Aguna to marriage to allow Nisuin, that's when they allowed this takana to be active, to rely on one aid. But as far as Ksuba is concerned, which is a din moment, and the Torah requires two aidim, we have to get aids. She's not going to be believed because she's being motzi moment cheskasa. Omerlem Beit Shammai. Beit Shammai counter-argued against Beis Hillel that even according to your shita, that we don't say Kal V'chomer to believe her as far as Tsuba, but nevertheless, halo v'halo misefer Tsuba nilmod shu kosev la shem tinosi li'acher titli masha kosev lechi. There's a Gevia of the Ksuba for another reason entirely. The Baal was Mischai B'shtar Ksuba. Shekshetinosi li'acher beheter tigva Ksubasa. And therefore, if she, on her own testimony of Meis Baila, we're going to be matir her to get married, the Mela will allow her to claim her ksuba. The Chazu Beis Hillel lahoros kedivei Beit Shammai. Beit Shammai's argument was so compelling that Beis Hillel rescinded their original position, and now they accepted the psak of Beit Shammai that Titol Ksubasa, she's believed even as far as her ksuba. Here we are, we're up to the Gemara here on the top of Kuf Yud.